Hey everybody, welcome back to the next part of my Creating a Great Tone series for the Line 6 Helix. Today I want to talk about something I've been meaning to talk about for a while, and that is using the preamp only blocks in our Helix to give ourselves the possibility of mixing and matching and getting some new tonal colors, using them kind of as if they were just overdrive pedals, if you will. So it's one of those features that I'm sure some folks have already tried, but it is quite often overlooked. While the differences using it this way may not be dramatic, there are some subtleties and some subtle differences that we can get in maybe helping us to dial in the tone that we're looking for. So let's dive over to HX Edit and kind of take a look at what I'm talking about. What I've done here is create a couple presets one of them is called Preamp Plex-Deluxe and one of them is called Preamp Champ-Z. There's millions of possibilities, well, I don't know millions, but there's a lot of possibilities here in mixing and matching preamps from one amp with a particular other amp. Now, we do not have power amp only blocks or models in the Helix. So what I did, and I'll start with this Preamp Champ to Z or Z, depending on if you're Canadian or American, I guess. So what I've done is I've set up some different snapshots, okay? So the one snapshot that I have here actually is number 4, is just called Z Clean. Number 1 is called Z Preamp, number 2 is called Tweed, and number 3 is called Z. So let me explain. The Z Clean snapshot is just gonna be this, and I'm using my brand new JTV 89F. It's set on the stock Variac setting of just playing a Les Paul on the bridge pickup right now. So if I was to play this, that's just the Dr. Z setup with a 212 interstate cab with the 160 ribbon 3 inches back. I have my normal little mastering section back here. That's going to be the same for all of these, so we're just going to ignore that. They're all of these different snapshots are going to go through that same thing. The amp is set with the drive at 2, bass at 10, mid at 3.5, treble at 4.9, presence 3.8, channel volume at 8.3, and master at 10. I have volume matched all of the snapshots in this video so that, like I mentioned before, it's so important when we're comparing tones. If the volumes aren't matched perfectly within, less than a half a dB or so, our ear is going to be fooled. We're not going to be able to tell what we're hearing. There's far too many examples of people comparing sounds out there that just are meaningless really because you're not comparing apples to apples, right? So these are all volume matched. So what you're gonna hear is the same volume, but just the different characteristics. So our brain isn't being tricked into thinking we're hearing something that we like more, but just because it's louder. So this is the clean, like I said. Slight edge of breakup, but I mean, if I switch that over to a Strat model, that's the bridge pickup, neck pickup. All right, let's go back to the Les Paul. So that is just what the Dr. Z sounds like. Now, the Z preamp is what I've done is I've added in a US small tweed preamp only block, all right? To hear what that sounds like using it as a front end, on the front end of the Dr. Z or as an overdrive pedal for the Z. But then I wanted to compare that to what it would sound like if we just ran an actual US small tweed with preamp power amp into the same speaker cabinet. So the speaker model is going to be the same, microphones are going to be the same, everything. Things have to stay consistent. We have to be changing the one variable that we want. And if you notice, I set the settings to be exactly the same. Now there is a presence control on the tweed model. I just took it to 0 to take it out of the equation. I hope that was the right thing to do. It seemed to compare out quite nicely. And then I did a Z where I thought, well, what if we just take the preamp out, the other amp, and just run the Dr. Z kind of cranked up to see how much drive we can get out of it and compare all of these, okay? So here again is the Z Clean with the Les Paul setting on the bridge pickup. Now what happens when I hit that with the preamp, the Tweed preamp? get some of that classic breakup of the Fender, that flubby kind of almost low end. Now let's compare that to what happens if we just push the Z really hard. Very different sound. Let's go back and forth between those. So here's the Tweed preamp hitting the Z. Here the bottom is compressed and really gooey and squishy. Back to just the Z. Much tighter low end to it, right? Now you might ask, well, how would that compare if we just got rid of the Z and just ran the Tweed alone amp at those same settings? So that's snapshot 2. So here's that sound. You get some of that squishy bottom end again? Let's compare that to the Z with the Tweed preamp and back to the Tweed. So here's the Z with the Tweed preamp. You can also watch on screen here as I switch between them. And these are the settings on the Tweed, right? Now, you might say, okay, well, what if we take the Tweed and maybe try to match it more to what the Dr. Z is doing, crank up the bass. Back to just the Z. Seems like with the Tweed, when I cranked the bass up, it added a little bit of volume to it. See, so no matter how I tweak it, there are subtle differences between this. Maybe I could spend a long time really tweaking EQs and stuff to get them to match more, but it just shows that we add some new flavors to this if we start mixing and matching, you know, preamps from one amp with kind of the power amp section from the other amp. And the way, if you think about it, if I go back to the Dr. Z, I have the master cranked to 10, really kind of activating the power amp section of that, but I've got the drive way back on 2, really trying as much as possible to take the preamp of that out of the equation, although you're still gonna have the tone stack involved and whatnot, but just that's more flexibility, right? So what do you guys think of that? It's kind of interesting. I thought that we could take that, add whatever kind of preamp we want, and then mix and match, you know, like I said, clean sounds and power amp from one type of amp with the preamp from another. You know, I could even take something like this and let me just get rid of this so I free up some. So what if I did something crazy like grab the, you know, the Rev Gen Red going into the Dr. Z, right? Lots of crazy sloppy playing there. But you get the idea, we could really mix and match things. How would that compare to just using the whole Rev Gen Red? I don't know, we'd have to go through and do the math on all that and see how it worked out. Okay, let's look at our other example here where I did a similar thing now. I took a deluxe amp, ran it fairly clean, so that's gonna sound like this. with the Les Paul on a Strat setting. Fun stuff. Back to the Les Paul setting bridge. Okay, so here it is now with the Deluxe, but with a Brit Plexi norm just cranked going into that clean sound, and that's what this sounds like. Well, how does that compare if we go with those same settings, but just on the full-blown Marshall Plexi? Back again to the Deluxe with the Marshall preamp. Very different sound now than that. Now, what if we take the Deluxe and crank it up so it's got a bunch of drive coming in from just itself? Back to the Deluxe clean, but with the Marshall pre. Cleans up there. So some pretty interesting stuff there, some pretty different sounds. So what I did also is I took a looper and I thought we could also compare them just by hearing the exact same loop kind of played through it as well, right? So what do we have here? Let's see. Okay, so as we can see, some pretty different tonal characteristics there when we actually hear the exact same riff, same performance and everything going through them and switching between them. We really hear those tonal differences. So this really opens up a whole other world of possibilities now. As if we didn't have enough tonal possibilities and combinations in the Helix, now we can do this and really blow the doors open and start mixing, matching preamps with different amplifiers. And it basically takes our, kind of distortion effects section in the Helix and really opens it up to almost all of the amps in there. Maybe you want to pair up a litigator with a placator. Maybe you want to pair up the Rev Gen Red with the Deluxe or what have you, totally different combinations. And there's going to be some really cool, interesting combinations hidden in there, I'm sure. So I'm going to definitely play around with this more and have some fun with it. I hope that was helpful. I hope it was clear. I hope I didn't kind of jump around too much. And I hope you guys enjoyed that. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, share the video if you don't mind. It helps me to just keep doing these things. I've also got a bunch of presets up on Line 6 Marketplace, and if you wanted to help support the cause and help me to be able to keep going with these things, I would appreciate it if you want to pick some of those up and you get some new presets for yourself. So I got some new ones coming up on there too. So thank you guys so much again. I'll be back soon with some more content. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and ciao for now.